Hello, friends. Welcome to the inaugural episode of Bird Shit, The Gun Penguin podcast. Wow, that name. I don't know about that name. But you know what? This podcast will probably be bird shit, or at least about as valuable as bird shit to the listener. So hey, maybe it's a great name. So how is this going to be different from the other podcast? And is the other podcast going away? No, the other podcast is absolutely not going away. But sometimes I want to have the ability to talk about current events quickly on the fly, and I wanted to test this format and see if this would be a good way to do that. Now, today we're not talking about stuff that's super current, but that's what I'd like to use this for. And also, I'm working on all these long-term projects, and the scope of those things keeps growing. Like, I've been working on the Beretta 1301 and the Beretta 92A1 update video for months because I keep learning more information. I keep finding stuff that I need to cover, and they're just getting longer and longer. But I also think that they have better information in them than they would have had otherwise. So I think it's worth it to wait and put those out when they're more to my liking and when I feel like they're truly finished. You know, I know it's frustrating that I don't put out content that frequently or on a regular schedule, but it's because I'm really obsessive about stuff being good. I can't just put something out, stick it out on the internet and say, okay, there it is. If I think there's anything I could have done better, I would have rather waited and done it better. So I know it's frustrating. I'm always trying to work faster, but I don't want to just put out some crap for y'all to watch. So this is a way for me to easily put out content that is valuable. This is commentary on whatever the hell is happening in the gun community. And even if you don't find my opinions on those things valuable, which you probably won't, let's be honest. I'm kind of a moron. You'll at least be aware that these things are happening. So today we're talking about braces and the brace ban. Now that the comment period is over, and yeah, we're very late on that, but there's still a long way to go, and that's why I think it's still valuable to discuss these things. Then we have the Russian ammo ban. I want to talk not so much about what we can do to get it lifted, because the chances of that are, well, within the first year are pretty remote. But there are some things that we can do after that to make sure that it doesn't stay in place and to make sure that it's less likely that there are import bans like this in the future. So I think we need to talk about that. We need to talk about the general state of the ATF. That's very important. Then we're going to talk generally about politics in the gun community briefly. And last of all, we're just going to talk about entertainment because I do that in every podcast. And I just think it's fun. Y'all seem to enjoy engaging with those discussions. So let's do it. Before I forget, I'm going to put in a shameless plug. This was recorded later and inserted into the podcast. I now have a Teespring store, and I hand drew a t-shirt design for y'all. It's not good, but it does exist, and any money that you spend on this t-shirt will go directly into the channel. I don't keep any money from Patreon or anything else for myself. That is reinvested in TGP, in ammo, and whatever else I need to keep the channel running. So please, if you'd like to support the channel, that's a great way to do it. Patreon is a great way. That gets you access to the TGP Discord. At the $5 level, you get patches periodically. I'll send you out a patch. And we have a lot of fun on the Discord. You're all welcome there, and we'd love to have you. Back to the show. So, first of all, braces and the brace ban and the comments. So I forget what the final count was on the comments when things closed on September 8th. I think we'd given them like 208,000 comments. That's pretty good, but I expected more. You know, we really kind of suck at the ATF comments. I've never understood this. There are millions and millions and millions of braced pistols on the market, and then only 208,000 people comment. That's I don't know. That number seems very low to me. In the gun community, there are a lot of people who own guns and like guns, but there aren't a lot of people that are willing to sort of do their part to make sure that there aren't brace bans. That sucks. Why is that? We'll talk about that a little bit more when we talk about politics in the gun community. But I think a lot of it is that folks sort of don't understand that the victories that we have They don't just happen. There's someone, whether you saw it or not, that did a lot of work to make sure that you didn't lose whatever was on the chopping block. And folks take it for granted that someone in the gun community will do the hard work. We can't keep doing that. We have to make sure that we're doing that work. And that's part of the reason I'm doing this podcast, to fix that in the future, to make sure that I'm talking about these issues in a more timely manner and discussing them more often. So, what are the real problems with the brace ban? We've talked about this in a lot of the time in terms of constitutional rights and the government taking your property away, but there are other really big problems here. There are other reasons why this is especially dangerous, other than the government just saying, yes, you can own this, and then changing their mind later. It's especially dangerous because the government wants to dictate how you use your gun and the accessories that you can put on it. We deal with that to some degree through the NFA, but this is a completely new, uncharted realm of government control over you and how you're handling your guns and the stuff that you're bolting to the guns. It's very strange. It's also one of those things where I'm not sure how the fuck they would even enforce it. I don't know how that would work. Is there going to be, just some guy who heads a department of a couple of thousand people that goes around and checks on these things? And if that's the case, it's a terrible use of taxpayer money. Are we going to pay for them to open this sub-department within the ATF, the sub-department of ATF pistol brace oppressions? I mean, it's bullshit. It's crazy when you think about it. Also, it shows the concern that the ATF has with hilarious minutia, right? This has been one of the hallmarks of the modern ATF, the ATF in the last 20 years, of obsession with hilarious minutia. Stuff that folks in the know, folks in the gun community look at it and say, what? Why the fuck do you care about that? That's so weird. And that's only going to get worse. And if Chipman had been confirmed, it was going to get much worse, because he seems abnormally concerned with hilarious, strange minutia. But braces and the proposed brace, grading system, what the fuck is up with that thing? That was going to take the ATF's obsession to all kinds of new and insane places. But I've noticed that we're celebrating 208,000 comments. 208,000? It's early in the morning. 208,000 comments. We're taking that as a victory. We're celebrating. We won. We did it. Yeah, we haven't won yet. It's not over yet. We haven't won. That just means that we made some comments, a lot of comments. And by the way, not all of them were opposing the ATF's proposed rule. So keep that in mind. Not all of them were working in our favor. Some were not. So this is not a victory yet. Things could still go very sideways for us. So we have to remember that. And I think that's why it's important to just educate normal folks, take them to the range, show them the braced pistols, and show them that, yeah, this is, it's no different than anything else. It's being pitched. I mean, I'm even seeing it in the news that short barrels somehow make the rifle more dangerous. Those of us who shoot know that's hilarious. It just makes the gun smaller. This is one of the most baffling beliefs that I've heard coming from folks who are in favor of increased gun control. Going back to the NFA, it's the idea that, well, God, they back in 1920 they felt that shorter barrels were more dangerous. So surely they must be, because they make the gun more concealable. Concealable in what sense? Like you can fit it under a trench coat for a person of what height? It's very strange. So if we go out there and we show folks who are unfamiliar with guns what a pistol brace is, that it's no more dangerous than anything else, we're doing our part to hopefully make sure that this doesn't go into effect. Winning hearts and minds is really the best thing that we can do. This is kind of a long-term fight that's never going to end. And the only way to truly end it, is to get folks on our side, even folks who don't necessarily like guns, to at least say, well, those regulations are insane and ridiculous. That will help out a lot. And, there are so many braces. They really can't round all of them up. And I think we all rationally know that it's from a logistical perspective, I'm not sure that that's possible. And in much the same way, they're not talking, as far as I know, they were at one point, but I think in the actual final document, I don't think there's any mention of expanding the ATF to, or waiving the $200 tax stamp fee so that they can be converted to SBRs. Not that that's a solution. I'm not saying that it is. I'm just saying that they've not put any ideas in place to make this logistically feasible in the first place. It's not possible to do what they think they're going to do. And I think a lot of us are also looking at that and saying, well, we've won. They finally realized this is not possible. Well, I don't think that's true. Just because they've stopped mentioning this regularly, and because we've stopped getting information from inside the ATF about what their thought process is, and then shipment wasn't confirmed, that doesn't mean anything. We're still in tough shape here with the braces. So anyway, I'm just rambling on and on and on in circles, aren't I? Yeah, without John or somebody else here, I'll just fucking go in a circle, won't I? Oh man, this first one's gonna be interesting. And you know what? I'm not gonna edit it down either. I'm gonna put it out like this, like a disaster. Next, let's talk about the Russian ammo ban. So, the Russian ammo ban is one of the most hilariously veiled attempts at gun control. It would almost be less infuriating if they would just come out and say, yeah, we're trying to take your cheap bullets away. We're trying to take the cheapies from you. But that's not what they're saying. They're making it about foreign policy and assorted other stuff. And I'm sure there is a measure of that involved, but I think primarily it is about keeping the cheap bullets out of American hands. The Russian ammo ban is going to affect me immensely. I've shot a lot of 7.62 by 39 in the last year, and you guys know that I shoot a ton of 9x18 Makarov. So 7.62 by 39, we can get brass case stuff here. It's expensive, and that's going to suck. But you can get it. 9x18 Makarov. What are the domestically produced options? What am I gonna buy a Hornady Critical Defense anytime I want to shoot my Makarov? Fuck that. No, that's not happening. And I think there are a few brass cased options that are produced in other European countries, but none of it's going to be as cheap as the Russian stuff. And that was the whole point of the Makarov, is it's a fantastic pistol that's super cheap to shoot. But the Russian ammo ban, one of the things that folks who are anti-gun never take into account is how we are going to respond to bans. It actually causes the market to grow. It has the opposite effect. We buy more guns. You can chart all of this, by the way. It's easy to see. You can look at the NICS checks and everything else that we use to monitor how the market is growing. It causes us to buy more ammo. We buy up all the Russian ammo we see when it's going to go away. And we buy up any gun that we're interested in if we think there's any chance that it might be banned in the future. So it has the opposite effect. It causes us to double down and say, oh no, we're going to buy it all up. We're going to stockpile. We're going to do everything we can to spite you. And then that stuff just gets sold on the used market later. The ammo ban is just indicative of the way that the Biden administration thinks. So a little bit about my politics. I haven't talked about this in years, and this is going to infuriate some of you. You're going to hate me after this. You're going to be like, oh, that gun penguin. Ooh, I hate him. I hope his atheist ass burns in liberal hell. Well, yeah, I'm a somewhat left-leaning atheist. And when I say somewhat left-leaning, I mean, we all take the political quiz, chart your political views. I am to the left and down, meaning that I'm a leftist libertarian, which some of you would consider those ideas to be incompatible, but they're really not. So I don't, just because I've said in the past that I'm a leftist, vaguely left-leaning, in other videos, y'all assume that must mean that I am a Democrat, that I was like at Biden rallies going, woo, Biden was my fucking last choice. Who the fuck would choose Biden for the U.S. presidency? Very, very strange. Of all the available left-leaning options, that's not the one I would have picked. But at the same time, I for damn sure wouldn't pick Donald Trump either. And there were Republicans that I would have voted for, but I for damn sure would not vote for Donald Trump. So we've had these two awful administrations back to back, and both of them handled everything gun related in the worst possible way. It seems like no matter which party you align yourself with these days, your rights are being threatened. But the ammo ban in particular is very much representative of the incredibly clumsy way in which Biden handles everything. Any choice that he could make, he makes the clumsiest, most ham-fisted decision. Look at the way the pullout of Afghanistan was handled. Just shockingly bad. It was startling to see as an American. I think most of you can agree with me there. In much the same way, the ammo ban feels so petty. It's like he looked at the ways that he was stalled with all these other gun control measures and said, aha, something that I can do by executive fiat. Fuck you, gun community. And he didn't realize that these things just make us more resentful. It makes us double down. We become even more distrustful of authority than we already are. It doesn't help anything. It's just making the situation worse. And the way that Biden has spoken about gun owners and guns in general, I don't know if he could have done a worse job. And we're seeing the ramifications of that now, I think. But in much the same way, Trump doesn't really have that much of a better record, does he? I bring this up to say that what we can do about the ammo ban in the future is to demand better leaders. I know that's easier for me to say than to do, but in this case, the gun community mostly just rallied behind Donald Trump, a candidate and president who hadn't really done much for us or anything. It had actually harmed us. We lost ground under Trump. A guy who promised us the world. We lost ground under Trump. And yet that's the guy that we rallied behind. And because we knew we were going to lose ground under Biden. I mean, of course, he fucking told us in advance. What we've got to do is we've got to say, no, this is unacceptable. Trump is unacceptable. Biden is unacceptable. We can't just say, we can't blindly ignore the things that Trump did, because that's what we've done so far. We can't just say, oh, those were the good old days. Folks have gotten in the comments under my videos and said, because I make fun of every politician in my videos. Folks will get in the comments under the ones where I knock Trump in some fashion and say, well, I bet you wish Trump was still in office now. No, I fucking don't. I wish that a competent candidate who would actually look after the Constitution was in power. That's what I wish for, And yes, I lean left and I lean libertarian, but the Constitution is very important and it's got to be preserved. And no, I'm not, I'm not some fucking constitutionalist, super right wing guy. Those guys don't know what the fuck they're talking about either. My educational background is in history. They don't know American history. They don't understand the nature of this country. They're just as fucked up as anybody else is. But it's very important that we preserve what we have. And both parties right now are going after the Constitution fucking hard. So instead of saying, well, Trump is the lesser of two evils related to the gun community. No, just fucking demand more from your leaders from the start. That's how we can prevent future ammo bans. All right. The general state of the ATF. We've already talked about this a little bit. The ATF's obsession with strange minutia. We're really tired of this shit. I think what we see within the ATF is factionalism. And one of the factions sort of doesn't understand the very nature of the ATF, what it's supposed to do. And they view it as a political organization that can be manipulated and moved around for political gains for one ideology, well, or the other at various times. If you speak to folks at the ATF, I obviously, when I was opening a gun store, a gun business, you have to interact with the ATF often. Most of the folks that I've interacted with have been, frankly, fantastic. They seem to enjoy guns. They seem to love firearms. They seem to know a lot about them, as you would fucking hope they do. And that seems to indicate what we've heard reports of in the past, that there are two groups within the ATF. One of which is very anti-gun and wants to circumvent the legislative process to initiate gun control through the ATF. And then the other side, they're just folks just trying to do their job, and that's just enforce the laws that are on the books in a way that are reasonable and make sense for gun owners and for them. There can't be this sort of inner war within the organization that tells us that it's not clear what the ATF should be doing. The president, regardless of his or her own personal beliefs, is supposed to preserve American laws and American ideals. And part of that is understanding what these different organizations do and understanding how to use them. And by use them, I don't mean for your own political aims, but I mean how to use them to do what they were set up to do. And in the case of the ATF exists to, among other things, enforce the gun laws that are on the books as they exist on the books. Not to reinterpret those laws as they see fit to accomplish a political goal, and not to make life harder for manufacturers and end users who purchase products that they approved that they later decide that they don't like. Once they've made a decision, they've made a decision. The market has moved on. People start buying stuff. They can't change their mind later. So the ATF doesn't know what the fuck it's intended to do. The people inside of it don't understand their purpose. That's got to change. And I would like to see a president, pro-gun or otherwise, who just fucking understands how to use these organizations. Because it's not just the ATF that gets misused. We all know that. A president comes in and becomes frustrated by the gridlock in Congress and just says, well, I'm going to use the power that I do have via these other organizations to accomplish whatever I seek to accomplish. That's not what the presidency is supposed to do. That's not what these organizations are supposed to do. And also, that gridlock is one of the reasons that we are so stable as a country. We have far more historical stability than most other nations, and we know that. Americans do know that, even if they get frustrated by the gridlock. Gridlock is not always bad. Gridlock prevents terrible decisions from being made, short-sighted decisions. So when a president gets in and says, well, God damn it, I can't initiate every gun control measure that I've ever wanted to initiate by executive fiat because fucking Congress is in the way. Yes, that is true. That's exactly the way it's supposed to be. That is the very nature of our fucking system. So gridlock is good sometimes. Sometimes gridlock is what saves our rights. And gridlock is one of the reasons that we are so fucking consistent as a country. Some might say consistently frustrating, but consistent all the same. So I think this comes back to us demanding better of our leaders, right? Regardless of whether or not you agree with a president who is in power, maybe you can at least respect them and respect the office if they're showing you the same respect in return. If they're respecting the office, the nature of the office, the limitations of the office, and if they're respecting what a president is supposed to be doing day to day. We're not seeing that now. We didn't see it from Trump, and we're not seeing it from Biden. And one president sort of lays the groundwork for what comes later. And by that, I mean the president that precedes you, if they're ramping up the executive orders one after another, the person who comes in afterwards says, well, fuck it, I'm going to do it too. And that goes back and back and back and back. You know, you can start the blame there. Well, it's really as early as you want to go. But the executive order problem as we have it now, you know, sort of started in the 90s, and then, you know, Bush and Obama really ramped it up. And listen, you know, I'm an Obama fan. I like Obama, but there's also a lot to criticize there. You know, he droned the shit out of the world, and he massively expanded executive power for the worse. That's not what the presidency exists to do. Presidential power has gotten a bit extreme as far as I'm concerned, and especially when we consider how the presidency was used in the past. Now, it's completely different if you go back to sort of the dawn of America. There was a lot of discussion about executive power, and there were many who favored far more executive power than there is now. But luckily, well, I guess it has sort of waxed and waned, but luckily executive power is a bit more limited than was initially suggested by some in the long, long ago times. But, God, wow, we really fucking got off topic, didn't we, talking about the ATF? But it's harder for me to come up with sort of an easy solution, like write to your representatives for ATF authority. Yes, of course, write to your representatives. That's extremely important. But with the ATF, a lot of it comes down to expect more from your leaders. We have a terrible tendency to throw our hands up and say, well, these are the fuckers we were given. That's not good enough. Oh, and that, you know, while we're talking about that, let's talk about third parties, spoiler parties. I get so fucking angry when people start talking about spoiler candidates. They'll say, oh, you voted for so-and-so, you fucker, you lost us the election, you voted for a spoiler candidate. What? So because this person wanted better and was willing to put their money where their mouth is, they spoiled the election, they ruined the election for you. You can't hate somebody for wanting more, for wanting better from their leaders. And if you talk to folks who vote for third-party candidates, that's usually what they're after. They don't necessarily always know the best way to achieve that, but they're trying to do something about it. That's a hell of a lot more than you're doing about it. Fucking whining at them for voting with their conscience, right? So come on with that shit. We should want better. We should want better for ourselves and for the country, and that might mean doing something other than aligning yourself with either of the two fucking terrible options. Fuck it. Let's just, I'm gonna talk about it. The Texas abortion ban, well, it's not really, it's effectively a ban. It massively limits abortion rights. This is an example of what's wrong with the right in particular. The right talks about personal rights, individual rights, gun rights, but they don't mean all rights. They just mean the rights that they like, just the shit that they're into. And a lot of this is tied up with religion and this injection of religion into lawmaking. And this is another sort of twisting of what the government is, what it's supposed to do, what those who founded the country intended for the government to do, how they intended it to interact with citizens and their decision-making day to day. And this puts us in a dangerous position where we run the risk of no longer having a secular government. We've already moved in that direction increasingly, well, at various points in American history. It seems to kind of ebb and flow, but never for the better. The less religion, any religion, I'm not just picking on Christianity, it doesn't matter what the fucking religion is. There needs to be less religion in government. That's one of the founding principles of this country relative to other nations. There's no room for that. It's un-American. It truly is. And if you need me to cite sources, I'm happy to do that. If you need me to recommend books to you, I'm happy to do that. It doesn't matter how you individually worship. You can still respect that other people don't want to worship and don't want worship to be a part of the government that in a manner controls their day-to-day life. You can respect that in much the same way that even a candidate who you disagree with from another party, you should expect them to respect the Constitution, to respect the rights that we already have, and to respect and understand what other governmental organizations do and how to use them. You can do the same thing for rights that you don't agree with. You should respect all rights, not just the ones that you like, because when someone else has less rights, that means that your rights are also in danger later. Historically, that's the way it has worked. We want there to sort of be a social and political imperative that once we have a right, it cannot be taken away from us again later. In theory, that's the way it's kind of supposed to work. You don't want to start this idea that a right can be taken away years and years, decades later. That's very, very dangerous. You don't want that because it's abortion today. You may hate abortion. Fine. That's your right. You know what? Don't get an abortion. If you hate abortion, there's a really easy solution. You don't ever have to get one. But you can leave the option open for someone who would like to. It means nothing to you. It will affect you zero if someone else gets an abortion. That will not bother you. But you have to respect what's there because it'll be gun rights next, as we see, or something, free speech. Who the hell knows? The society's moving more rapidly than it used to. So you don't want to go down that road. Preserve the rights that we have, all the rights, no matter what they are, no matter whether or not you like them or would ever use them. That doesn't mean they're invalid. So the Texas abortion ban is very scary to me. It shows me that truly both of the major parties are un-American. They don't understand what America is. They don't understand what the country was intended to be and what it could be. They're more concerned with these petty day-to-day squabbles. And you know what? In the comments under videos where I have vaguely discussed politics, the one thing that comes up, some of y'all get shaking angry, irrationally, bizarrely angry about abortion. If anything, any political issue makes you that unreasonably angry, you need to take a moment and ask yourself, why? Why am I so bothered by a thing that other people do? Why? What's the deal there? Like, for instance, I see these atheists who get just absolutely unreasonably angry about anything to do with religion, religious thinking, religious people. It doesn't matter. Religion just makes them incredibly, strangely angry. I don't get that shit either. It's fucking weird. You need to ask yourself, why does this topic control you in that way? What is it about that? And a lot of them will say things like, churches should be wiped off the face of the earth. That's fucking unreasonable. I 100% support the rights of others to worship as they see fit. That's totally fine. That doesn't concern me at all. Now, it concerns me when they want to use their religion to govern how I live my life, as we're seeing here. You know, that's fucked up. Please don't do that. That's unreasonable. That's unconstitutional. But I want everyone to worship freely in any manner that is appealing to them. Knock yourself out. I don't care. It doesn't bother me in the least bit. It doesn't make me angry. In fact, it makes me happy. You're building community. You're having a good time. It's great. I love it. But we've already sort of gotten into, wow, the ATF led to politics in the gun community pretty fast, didn't it? Let's just talk about this kind of briefly then. So what do I mean about politics in the gun community? Well, the pandemic, as more and more people have bought guns, the sort of cultural makeup of the gun community is changing, right? There are a lot more people who are left-leaning. A lot more. Many hundreds of thousands more have joined the ranks of gun owners during the pandemic. That's awesome. That's amazing. But the gun community is not being welcoming. It's one of the things that I've noticed. And I've come to a horrible conclusion here. I don't think the gun community actually wants to win the fight over guns. I don't think we want to win. I think we want the fight to continue because that's what our actions indicate. Our actions indicate that we don't want success. We just are in it for the fighting. So there are all these people who come in, people from the LGBTQ community, from every cultural background imaginable, every color, creed, everybody, all these folks are joining the gun community, and we're not being very welcoming, are we? I see it at the gun range. I see it online. Now, don't get me wrong. There are a lot of folks in the gun community who are happy to have new folks. I am not talking to everyone here, but there is a large percentage that would rather us just continue to be fucking totally average white guys. And that's not how we're going to thrive. It's not. I say this as a totally average white guy. That's not what we need. We need everyone. We need everyone. We need all of them, and as many of them as we can possibly get. Not only does it protect us, but it also injects new ideas into the gun community, new viewpoints, and introduces new generations to guns. These folks are going to go on, have kids of their own. They'll grow up to be gun fans because they grew up with guns. That's the reason most of us like guns so much, right? We grew up with them. We love guns. We, from an early age, saw, those aren't scary things. You can get your food with them. You can use them to protect yourself. And if handled safely, they're an amazing way to spend a fun Saturday afternoon. We grew up with them, and other folks need to grow up with them too, to sort of have the true love of guns that a lot of us have. So we need to be welcoming these folks, and I welcome them. And now, how do they protect us politically? Well, they make guns a nonpartisan issue. That's one of the most important things we can do right now. Guns are not about partisanship. We just talked about Trump and Biden, right? Trump was not pro-gun. Biden is obviously not pro-gun. But if voters on both sides are pro-gun, that protects us in a big way. It puts us in a position where, regardless of how someone votes, they're saying to the candidate, yeah, but you better leave guns alone. That's powerful. That's very powerful. That's what we need. It also, I mentioned it, injecting new perspectives. That's important because we get stale and stagnant as a community. You know it's true. If you've been around for a few years, you know how the gun community is. We're very conservative about ideas, and we poo-poo anything new. And we need these folks to come in and bring fresh outside perspectives to us, especially on things like how should women be training? What guns should women buy? Why? How should they be carrying? That's really important stuff. And by the way, women are an extremely fast-growing segment of the gun community. And I've noticed that generally guys in the gun community don't really understand how to interact with women. They act like they're strange alien creatures, and they want to help them with shit and place their hands on the gun and just generally be just weirdly misogynistic. I hate it. We've got to do a lot better with how we treat women within the gun community. I'm thinking about making a whole episode about that and having some ladies on who have become shooters in the last couple of years, just to kind of talk about their experiences and some things we can do better, some things we can do to make the gun community more welcoming for them. Because I think we have a long way to go in that department. I think we can do a lot better. But let's make sure that we treat gun ownership as a human right, and make sure that we don't treat it as a sort of a private club for people who look like us, to just keep the same people at the range all the time, to keep the gun community looking exactly the same. I've heard people say under their breath at the range things like, well, I don't want that type of person to own guns. Seriously, that's a true story. I've heard that multiple times. And you guys know what they're saying. They're saying that other groups that they don't like, they don't want them to be armed because that might threaten them in some fashion. The reason this is really important is because a lot of gun control has stemmed from white fears that other groups would purchase guns and potentially, rise up against the whites in some fashion. That's the origin of a lot of gun control measures. Most of them. And that's not helping us grow. We don't want things to stay the way that they are now. We want the gun community to be huge. We want it to thrive. We want 80% of the American public to be gun owners. Well, we want 100%, but I don't think that'll ever happen. But I think we can have some really impressive numbers. And that comes back to holding candidates accountable and holding each other accountable. If we hold our candidates accountable, we can help to depoliticize gun ownership and gun rights in general. And if we hold one another accountable, we can do the same. When somebody says some fucked up shit at the range that makes you go, oh, that's That's incredibly offensive. Say something about it. Say no. I want LGBTQ people to feel comfortable at the range. Voice your opinion. I hear from a lot of you folks who are very conservative who say, I don't care who joins the gun community as long as they're pro-gun. Well, that's great. Tell your friends who don't feel that way. And at the same time, a lot of folks who are leftists, I see y'all poo-poo the white people within the gun community who don't say the right thing or do the right thing as whatever it is this week that you expect other people to do. By the way, I'm poo-pooing. I'm just going to keep saying poo-poo. I'm going to say it so much. It's so weird. I'm poo-pooing political correctness. God, I said it again. I'm poo-pooing political correctness to a degree. But that's not to say that we shouldn't be nice to people who are different from us and say whatever they'd like us to say, because I'm Southern and that's just the polite thing to do. Politeness is important, and that's the polite thing to do for other people. So you should do that because hopefully you're a nice person and not a giant cockhole to others. But at the same time, if you're a gun-owning leftist, don't jump down somebody's throat just because they didn't say what you wanted them to, because that's not helping the community either. Be gentle with those folks. Be kind to them. Try to forge a sense of community. Interact with those folks in a polite way, the way that you would want to be interacted with, because keep in mind, you're probably not saying the things that they would like to hear you say either. So be tolerant of your neighbors, be kind to them, be gentle and patient with folks, but at the same time, say, hey, that was kind of offensive to me. You can say that politely, and there are ways to resolve these problems in a way that works for everyone, where we can all grow and get better. And God, this devolved into some touchy-feely kumbaya shit, didn't it? Well, that's fine. I've yammered now for almost 45 minutes. That's probably enough. Let's talk about entertainment, because that's a lot more fun. First, I'm going to chug some water. I'm sure that made a delightfully disgusting sound on the microphone. Good times. So, some things that are coming up soon. The Last Duel, Ridley Scott movie. You guys like Ridley Scott? I'm a big fan. He's one of my favorite directors. I have a feeling, just based on the trailer, that this movie is going to look somewhat like Gladiator and perhaps feel a bit like Gladiator. I hope I'm right about that. I thought the same thing of Robin Hood. And Robin Hood, while it was not a terrible movie, it wasn't outright bad. It wasn't particularly great either. It was just kind of eh. And a lot of that had to do with the writing and the editing. The performances were very good, but a lot of that other stuff, not so much. So I have high hopes for The Last Duel. If it's based on a true story, though I can already tell from the trailer some of the details have been changed. It's basically the story of the last judicial duel in France, maybe in all of Europe. I can't remember. It's been a while since I read about that story, but it's a really, really interesting story. Basically, an event occurred. Wow, that's a really specific way to put it, isn't it? That's just the story of every movie. Yeah, what happened in Star Wars? Well, an event occurred, and there were characters, and then things happened, and then the plot moved forward. The end. That's the movie. Anyway, this a noble lady, the wife of a prominent knight, claimed that she had been assaulted, sexually assaulted. And the gentleman who she said assaulted her said he didn't. And her husband wanted to defend her honor, so they dueled to the death, and her husband won and killed the guy. We're not sure what happened to this day. It's one of those things that's sort of unknown. And given the social stigma that she would have faced for claiming to have been sexually assaulted, I mean, God, it would have been profound. It would be kind of shocking if she just made that up. So that lends a lot of credence to her story. She suffered immensely to get her story out there. So I think that in a post-Me Too world, I think that's a really important story to tell. So I'm very interested to watch that. I'm interested to see what Ridley Scott will do with the story. And it's a very interesting moment in history. And if you've heard about this event, you write about it down there in the comments. I don't know why the fuck I said that. oh, Diablo 2 Resurrected. I don't know what the subtitle was. That came out at the end of last week. I don't know. Some of y'all I know are pretty young. You probably did not play Diablo or Diablo 2 when they were first released back in the day. I'm in my mid-30s, so I did. And God, those games were like crack. It's like they just put crack right in the game. You just couldn't keep your little fingers off the keyboard, clacking away there, trying to get more loot. It's not like Capitalism, the game. You go out there and you grind, wasting hours of your life, clacking away at a computer, and then you get some loot at the end of it, and it's really not that great anyway. And then 1 in 1,000 times you get some really great loot, and then you feel like you're set. So yeah, Diablo has always appealed to our capitalistic tendencies, and it's incredibly addictive. It's really, really fun, and the game looks amazing. The way they've taken the art of the sprites in the original game and made those into 3D objects, it's incredible. It's beautiful. I love it. It looks the way that I imagine the original game looked in my head. I really like it. Then we've got the second season of The Witcher coming out after that in early December, I think. That's cool. My only concern there, I ended up actually really enjoying the first season after I watched it again. I know me and John talked about that at some point, and I said I didn't like it, but I've revised my opinion there. And that happens a lot. Sometimes I'm just fucking wrong a lot of the time, and I was wrong there. And it's actually really good, and I love the way the story is told. I love how disjointed it is. I know that the second season is being told much more like a traditional story, and that concerns me. I would rather that it not be. I would rather that it be told in that same sort of dreamy fairy tale kind of way. But we'll see. Hopefully it's good. I talk a lot about Bethesda games in general. Starfield's coming out next year. I don't know why. This is really depressing, but I'm not even excited for it. I just don't like the way the art style looks. It doesn't look appealing to me. I would have rather just gotten Elder Scrolls 6. And I'm finding that deep down in the depths of my evil little heart, I just don't give a fuck about Starfield. And that's really sad, isn't it? Yeah, that's depressing. But hey, that's how it is. Speaking of Bethesda, we're also getting more Skyrim. Enough said. Why? The next year's the Lord of the Rings show. We'll talk more about that when we get closer to it. I'm just reading off a list of entertainment shit that we might want to talk about. I'm late talking about it, but season 2 of the Mandalorian has kind of spun off all these other shows. I really did not like the first season of the Mandalorian. I thought that it was slow and it lacked emotional weight in general. The second season, though, was a massive improvement. I've watched it a couple of times, and each time I view it in a more favorable light. And maybe that's just because, watching something over and over again sort of tends to breed a sort of familiar warmth, I think. But I really like it. I think it's good. I liked what they did with Star Wars. I think it came together well, and that last episode is amazing. I don't want to spoil it in case you're one of the 2 people on Earth that don't know what happens at the end of the second season of The Mandalorian, but it was great. It's beautiful. The volume is one of the greatest special effects achievements certainly of our time. CGI looks awful. We can all agree that CGI does not look as good as practical effects in most circumstances. I'd much rather someone be put next to a model. You can see that in The Mandalorian. The Razor Crest is a model. Moff Gideon's whatever the fuck, that like weird diamond-shaped thing that he rides around in space in is a model, and it looks amazing. Really, really great stuff. But the volume lets the actors interact with the world instead of a blue screen. It makes the performances better. It captures a more impressive image in camera. It really makes The Mandalorian feel more alive. And I like that they're doing all these spin-off shows that are coming out of The Mandalorian season 2. That's the reason that we're talking about a show that came out last year, is because this is leading into the Book of Boba Fett and the Ahsoka show and the Obi-Wan Kenobi show, which I assume are going to be filmed the same way. And that's really cool. I'm excited about that. I am most worried perhaps about the Ahsoka show. I don't know how familiar y'all are with the Star Wars cartoons. I generally don't like them very much. I don't know. I'm fucking 34-year-old man. 33? How fuck old am I? I'm in my mid-30s. I don't remember how old I am right now. I'm a mid-30s guy, and I don't really watch cartoons. It's not one of those freaky deaky guys that watches those Japanese cartoons. Those look really, really creepy and pedo-y to me. Yeah, I'm not into that shit. Yeah. So anyway, there's a character in this. I don't know what the fuck am I talking about right now? Japanese cartoons. Jesus Christ, Gun Penguin. There's this character in the Star Wars cartoons. Ahsoka Tano, I think her name is. She's one of the only compelling characters in the cartoon show, and they transferred her to live action. Because I watched the Clone Wars show because everybody was like, yeah, I watched the Clone Wars shows. I was like, fine, fuck you. I'll give it a shot just so people would shut up about it. I generally hate it. It portrays the Jedi rightfully. So the Jedi are unlikable psychopaths who send people to their deaths and just seem completely unfazed by suffering and carnage. They're monsters. You know, watching the Jedi get killed is the greatest thing in the world because fuck those guys. They're huge dicks. But Ahsoka is a very interesting character, and so she's getting her own show. She's played by Rosario Dawson, who generally I love. She's an outstanding actor. Big fan. I really like her work. But she just, something's not right there. Something's off in the performance. I don't know how to explain it. You know, I know she's trying to act like a cartoon character, you know, trying to act, you know, play the same character that was originally a cartoon character. But I kind of wish they'd figured out a way to just get the original voice actor. What's her name? Why do I know her name? Ashley Eckstein? Let me look it up on my phone. Ashley Eckstein. Yeah. I don't understand why they didn't just have her come in and play the live action part. I think that would have been better. Rosario Dawson plays Ahsoka really like stern. It's just, I don't know. It felt weird in the Mandalorian. No, nothing like the character. It feels like a different character. So I'm a little bit concerned about that. But the thing that I most want to talk about, oh my God, the many saints of Newark. Do y'all watch The Sopranos? Does anyone here give a shit about The Sopranos? In my opinion, The Sopranos, the greatest television show of all time, to the point that I'm not even sure we can call it a simple television show. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. The Sopranos, oh God, it's just, it's so good. I don't even know where to begin. There's so much to talk about. Well, The Many Saints of Newark is a prequel film that was written by David Chase, who created The Sopranos and sort of oversaw the show during its run on HBO. This is going to sort of show how the DeMeo crime family got to the point that we see them at in the early 2000s. A lot of times Tony and friends will reminisce about the glory days in the 70s, and things were so good. It was so good in those days. I think it's probably the late 70s, maybe the early 80s, late 70s, I think. They'd talk about, those were the good old days for the mob. Things were so different. It's not like that now. And they seem to feel that was the golden period, right? And we're going to get to see, was that truly the golden period for the mob, or is that just nostalgia talking? Young Tony Soprano is played by James Gandolfini's son. I think Michael Gandolfini is his name. From the trailers, looks like his performance is outstanding. Of course, we have to wait and see the movie, which I think is coming out in the next couple of days, maybe on October 3rd. So really looking forward to that. David Chase there are very few creators that you would call a true genius. I would argue that Ridley Scott perhaps is one of those, but David Chase certainly is. And so many great people worked on The Sopranos throughout its run. Matthew Weiner, who went to Matthew Weiner, which not the disgraced senator who sent dick pics, but the guy who created Mad Men. Fucking hell, I hope I'm not getting those two. Okay, Anthony Weiner. Tony Weiner is is the guy who sent dick pics. Fuck. And Matthew Weiner created Mad Men, right? Oh God, this is just derailed the longer it's gone on, huh? A lot of people, a lot of really great people worked on The Sopranos. If you haven't watched it, I would highly recommend it. It hasn't aged in the same way that a lot of other things from that era have. Like if you go back and you watch a sitcom from the late 90s or early 2000s, it's hard to watch. It's rough. The Sopranos is not like that. It's really held up. It's the best thing to have ever been put on television. I'm very excited for the movie. Okay, I've talked for almost an hour. I will let you to get out of here. You're probably sick of this shit. Thank you so much for listening to this. I thank you. I love you all and hope you have a wonderful evening. Good night.